Forum One before we get started. Forum One is a digital agency. We've been around for about 20 years. We work with some of the most fascinating organizations in the country. We only work with nonprofits, foundations, think tanks, and government agencies. And they're all organizations that are trying to solve really big global problems. Environmental issues, healthcare, international development, education. We've done many projects for many clients, and we work on things like websites. We do social media campaigns. We look at digital analytics. We do AdWords. Pretty much anything with digital communications we work on.
So let's start it off. We've got a very retro theme going on for our slide deck today. So I want to go around the room and have everyone just introduce themselves momentarily and just say kind of what's your experience with AdWords sessions, and what do you hope to get out of today's session? Because AdWords, as you guys might be familiar with, is a behemoth of a thing, and we want to make sure that we have enough time to touch on what everyone's main goals to get out of it is. So,
so who are you with, and what do you hope to get out?
Yeah. Right, I'm Annie Animal. I am with Corey, and I have absolutely no experience with AdWords. I just learn every day.
Great.
Hi, I'm Sarah Zellner. I'm a consultant in corporate responsibility, and my experience with AdWords has been used for my own business.
Hi, I'm Yolanda Strode, President and Executive Director of Health and Medical Goods Sale. Like crowd advertising experience with AdWords.
Great, perfect.
Sarah Abdurrahim, I'm with the Jeff Weir Institute for Middle East Policy. My experience with AdWords.
Okay.
I'm John Osterman with the Center for Global Development. We don't really have experience with AdWords. I mean, I'd like to learn how to elevate maybe topics of ours that don't get much organic.
Yes, the grant from the National Democratic Institute. We have an AdWords grant that I'd like to be able to manage a little bit better.
John?
My name is John Partridge. I'm with the Eric Monday Foundation. We advocate for taking down the stigmas associated with mental health, and I had very limited experience with AdWords, and we'd like to figure out how to use it to get our message out.
Great.
I'm Sarah Boysen with America's Promise Alliance. Very limited experience with AdWords, but we have an account and the grant there, so we'd love to start using it.
Great.
I'm Samantha Diverstein, also with America's Promise, so just gonna not say anything else.
My name is Rona. I'm from American College of Commerce and Technology. I'm a student, but yeah, I would like to use this AdWords.
Chris Olson, Forum One. My experience with AdWords has been 6 or 8 years, so I'm looking forward to learning about it.
I'm Andrew. Excuse me. I'm Andrew Cohen with Forum One, and it's been a couple of years since I've used AdWords, so I'm also interested. So what's new?
Andrew Huron with the Foundation for the Public's Health. I have no experience with AdWords.
Okay.
My name is Buddy Bernard. I'm currently not with anyone. I've made AdWords at one point or another.
Marguerite Pridgeon. I do volunteer work for several local nonprofits that deal with aging issues and caregiver issues, and I have no experience with AdWords.
I'm Sasla Challa. I'm from the Gandhi Global Family. We promote peace and non-violence through our organization. And I don't have any experience about AdWords. I'm not a tech guy.
Great.
All right. So it sounds like we have a lot of people who want to learn what it is, how you can get a grant, and how you can use your grant better. So let me just start off by saying that AdWords is kind of like an onion where there's so many different levels to learning it. So today we're going to go over some really basic stuff. And if there's interest and people start doing it, we can do another session where we get in a little bit deeper. But you definitely can't learn everything in an hour. So this is going to be very high level. We're going to do introductions, which we just did. We'll tell you what AdWords is and what ad grants are, how to apply for them if you're a nonprofit. We'll tell you how to use AdWords effectively, give you some tips on that. Talk about measuring success, and then talk about how to maintain your campaigns. And again, it's going to be pretty cursory. Hopefully we'll have time for questions at the end so we can get into more details. So there is. So it's welcome 1, 2 for the, what is it, OGH guest?
Yes, open guest, podcast.
Open go. So everybody's used Google before. You see the search results come up. Google does a lot of different things. They're doing Wi-Fi through hot air balloons and self-driving cars, and they have Chrome browsers and all that kind of stuff. They make almost all of their money through advertising. And it's typically advertising through search results. They advertise when you search on Google. They advertise, you can use Google Ads on other websites. You can put it on your own website to make a little bit of extra money. They make almost all their money through advertising. And when you look at a search result like this, most of what you're looking at is ads. All the stuff in the boxes are ads. And so when we're talking about doing AdWords, and AdWords is creating an ad that will show up in the ads for Google. And if you're a nonprofit, you can do it for free. Do you have a question?
Impressed.
Okay. So Google will give grants of up to $10,000 a month to nonprofits, and we'll go over who's eligible and all that. And if you use your grants well and you're using all $10,000 every month and being successful with that money, then they'll often bump it up to $40,000 a month, which is a lot of money. It's about $500,000 a year free advertising. So who's eligible? It used to be that it was only 501c3s in the United States that were eligible, but they've expanded the program, and so now there's about 50 countries, and they're always adding more. Zimbabwe and Botswana just went on, or maybe not Zimbabwe, but Botswana just went online a couple days ago, for example. In the US, you have to be a 501c3. In other countries, you have to have a similar kind of government designation, and you have to have a website because you're driving people to your website. So you can't be a websiteless organization. And it has to be what they call a substantial website, which doesn't mean it has to be multiple pages. It just has to be something. Who's not eligible? There are certain organizations that aren't eligible for AdWords. So for-profit organizations cannot get grants from Google. Government entities aren't allowed to do it, though they may have other programs for government in certain circumstances. Hospitals and medical groups, schools, child care centers, and universities are all not eligible for AdWords grants. So if you're in one of those categories, then you shouldn't apply, or if you're kind of partially in one of those categories, then you should spin it as whatever the other part is, right? So if you're kind of an educational group that focuses on mental health, focus on the mental health for the purposes of your application.
Okay, so you get $10,000. So what does that grant buy you?
Lots of seahorses.
Lots of seahorses. A good chunk of them. But go on to the next piece. So really what you're getting is the ability to bid on keywords. Keywords are those exact things that people are typing in here. People are typing in elephants, travel, they're making reservations for their hotels and such. What you're doing is bidding on the keywords. And if you go on to the next one, those keywords can dramatically range in price. So what makes up that price? It has to do with how many people are searching on that term, how much money are people making off those terms because they're willing to pay a higher price, and how many people are going after those terms. So if you have a ton of groups like Orange County Accident Attorney, you can imagine those people are making some money when they get you as a client. You can imagine that's why they're willing to put their ads on there. Knowing that when those ads come up and you're paying that price, you're only paying when people click. So it might display 1,000,000 times, but if no one's clicking, they're not getting it on there. So these we just have as an example that this is how inflated it can get in the future, or in some of the ones. But if you're looking for more nonprofit-oriented, issue-based, and that really works for us as Google grantees, to really have more reasonably priced. Keeping in mind that one of the limitations of your Google grant is that you have a few limitations on you that the average paying Google grantee, Google AdWords advertiser does not have. Attorneys are paying full price. they can pay their $500. You can only bid up to $2 per thing for nonprofits by using a Google grant. You can have a separate Google AdWords campaign set up outside of your Google grant if you complete it as a separate account completely, and you can bid all day long on the more expensive ones. But for your Google grant purposes, $2 per keyword click is the max what you can do.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I don't know if it's open for questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, my question is, okay, we can bid on $2. What it is that every time someone clicks, it's costing us $2?
It's costing your Google grant $2.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. So every time someone clicks on my advertisement for Orange County Accident Attorney, it's costing me $463 on average.
But when you say bid.
So
we'll get into
we'll
that.
go into the more
a little bit.
nuances, because it's not like you just say, I'm gonna pay this much for it. It has to go with the competition, so the price will fluctuate.
Okay.
What you're doing is setting a ceiling.
Okay.
So that's one of those like onion layers that are crazy. So if you wanna go ahead and climb that one. So when we're talking about what these things are, you're choosing your keywords, these ones, you're bidding the right things, okay, let's go after those keywords. This one's a little bit higher cost, so maybe we can go after it, but be careful with it. These ones, we shouldn't even go after it, because there's no point in trying to beat out those teams.
With your $2 limit.
With your $2 limit.
So if you bid on these with your $2 limit, you said every time somebody types in environmental newsletter, I want my ad to appear, it would appear.
Okay.
It might appear at the top.
Yeah.
It might appear as 1, 2, or 3. This might appear close to the top. This would probably not, this might appear at the top, but this one would probably appear on page 2, if they go to page 2 or 3.
And this is separate from when just someone does a Google search and something
Yeah.
comes up in the
Can you go
top.
up one slide, 2 slides? 2, 3, 4, 5, couple there. These are your organic search results, which are completely independent of your AdWords. And still, for anyone who's not doing AdWords, 95% of clicks and searches are going towards these earned places. So we're just trying to go after this 5% of clicks here with these pieces.
Does that answer your question?
It does. I need to know more about, what mechanics of the.
Oh, so that's something totally
I
different.
know, I know, that's another seminar for them altogether.
Yeah, that's called search engine optimization, where you try to trick the search engines into making you go higher.
It's not about tricking, it's about optimizing.
Yes.
So
Chris, did you have a question?
Well, just if you could read it, so the things you have in boxes, those folks.
Those are the ads.
Right.
They set up a price that they're willing to pay, and that's determining whether they appear and how high.
We'll get into that, yes, but they're paying, everybody in these boxes is paying, it's not just the price that determines how high you bid up, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay, sometimes the same result will appear in the ad and in the search.
Yeah.
When I search for presidential candidates, I don't like, I always click on the ad, they can pay.
So now,
So
watch out for, actually I have a tip for exactly that scenario and what you don't want to do. But so just to kind of reiterate, because we were just talking about your placements. So how does Google decide what things are ranked? It's not solely based on how much you bid. So you don't want to always bid $2 on everything, because it's not like, oh, I bid $2, the highest bid is only $1.50. I can totally rock this and like get the top spot. Google's smarter than that. Back in the day, that worked. Now, not so much. So Google, using its regular algorithms, are also leveraging those things in order to figure out how relevant is it? Are people really understanding what this is? Is this actually what people are looking for? And also, what is that click-through rate? So click-through rate, or CTR, you're going to see it all over the place when you log into Google AdWords, is the rate of how frequently this is displayed versus how many times it's actually clicked on. So your click-through rates are going to be pretty low. You're going to see them in the, what would you say would be the range of?
like if you can get it to 1 to 3%, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so don't ever just discourage if you see a 3%. You're doing good.
Yep.
It's 3%. So that, just to keep that in mind as a frame of reference.
So if this guy's bidding $10 per click, and this one's only bidding $5 per click, but people are clicking on this one like crazy, Google's going to make more money by showing this one at the top, right? So they're going to push it up.
Yep.
Likewise, if if this one's not about social media training, but the website's actually about zebras in Africa, then Google's going to be like, I am deprioritizing that ad because it's not relevant. And so they're going to prioritize the relevant ones even if you're paying more. So that's what their relevance is.
You can't just go after whatever you want. You have to make sure that what you're advertising and what you're sending people to all correlates really nicely and cleanly with Google Analytics, or with the Google search.
One last another question is, when you get the $10,000 grant for your nonprofit, say for instance, the hash of the bid is $2, you never exceed for the first 6 months, 10,000. Do they cut that?
No.
Or do they continue to give you that?
It's the whole year, isn't it?
So they give you can keep it indefinitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, when you're first starting up your campaigns, you're probably not going to even spend your first 10 grand.
No.
It takes a lot of energy to spend 10 grand and set up those campaigns. So
definitely harder.
It's a long ramp up period, we'll say. Okay, right.
So how do you get a Google grant? So AdWords is, anybody can do AdWords, including nonprofits. To get a Google grant, there are a couple steps. First, you want to apply to Google for nonprofits, and we'll go through that quickly. Then you want to apply for a Google ad grant. And to do that, you have to set up your AdWords campaign. And then once you've been approved for your Google grant, you can actually start showing your advertising and driving people to your site. Now, once you get Google for nonprofits, you get a bunch of other services. They'll give you some nonprofit services for Google Docs and Google Maps and YouTube, stuff. But we're not going to go into those things today either. So to join Google for nonprofits, you have to know certain information about your nonprofit that you can put in there. So you can check it out, but you'll need to know like your employee identification number, certify that you're a 501c3. You have to agree to their non-discrimination clauses, that you don't discriminate against people for various reasons, and some other details. So make sure you have that with you when you go apply, or else you're going back and forth a lot trying to find it. Applying for the Google Ad Grant, which is the $10,000 grant, what you have to do is first you have to create a Google AdWords account. And then you have to create a sample campaign to show them that you know what you're doing. And we'll show you how to do that.
There's a story about that. Back in the day, they used to just let anyone, put it together. And I would inherit campaigns that were all over the place. People didn't really do their homework ahead of time. They just set up things to fairly kind keywords, and they just ran their money out. Now there's safety plans in place for this, but they used to run out of their $10,000 budget in like 3 days because they just didn't have, they were allowed to bid internet. People, now they have safeguards in place to help make sure that you're on-ramping and doing it in an educated, constructive way.
And they'll also reject you if you don't have a good ad campaign set up. And a lot of people get rejected, and they won't tell you why you're rejected, and they won't tell you what you did wrong, and they won't tell you you can apply again, but you can. You just have to figure out why they rejected you, and then fix it and apply again. So sometimes it takes a couple tries to get it right, especially if you're new to it. So to create your AdWords account, you can go to adwords.google.com and create an AdWords account. And when you do it, and you're going for a Google grant, it'll ask for your credit card information, it'll tell you need to put it in, don't put it in. Because if you put in your credit card information, they'll charge your credit card instead of your grant, even though you don't have a grant yet. So just don't put in your credit card information, because you'll eventually get a grant that will cover it, right? Your daily budget is about $330 a day, equals $10,000 a month. Your maximum cost per click you would have to put in is $2 or less. And when you're setting it up, you can only advertise on the google.com search results. They don't want you advertising on other websites where they display ads, because then they would have to pay people for those. And you can only do text ads.
Okay, so the anatomy of a Google AdWords campaign. So when I was first starting out, they're like, oh, what's your keywords? What's your ad? What's your ad group? What the heck is an ad group? Why? I don't know. It gets confusing sometimes. So this is just kind of a way of kind of glancing at it and kind of getting a sense of how things fit together. So when you're starting up your thing, when you first get your Google grant or you're applying for your Google grant, you're going to be setting up your campaign. Then you can have multiple ad groups. We're just going to focus in on one ad group. And within the ad groups, we're going to have keywords and ads. Let's digest what this means. Can you click on the next? So campaign, setting up your campaign. Your campaign is all about what you want people to do. We have an ad, we want them to download our white paper. We want them to register for our conference. We want them to attend a meeting. We want them to sign up for our newsletter so we can get them on the hook and like advertise our, send out email campaigns in the future so they'll become donors and really engage visitors over time. So each campaign has a target, just one target. And we set up our goals to measure our success. AdWords doesn't let you set up the goals within it, but most groups that are using AdWords, even if they don't use it as their primary, will be setting up a Google Analytics account. We don't have this as part of today's session, but make sure that your campaigns map to your goals in your Google Analytics so you can see long-term success. Next one. So within your campaign, we have our ad group. So that's when we're targeting a specific topic. So let's pretend you're wanting to get people into your newsletter. Your newsletter happens to be on multiple topics that your organization works on. Maybe your organization works on like health issues. So maybe it's on cancer. Maybe it's on tuberculosis, a whole bunch of different diseases, and so forth. So you can have a different ad group for each kind of sickness or disease or medical issue that you work on. Or if it's around a conference, it's different conference sessions that you're going after. So it's different ways of slicing that same goal pie. Next one. So once you have your thing that you want people to do, you have your way that you're attracting them. Now it's time to put together those actual little things that you're seeing on the page that show up. It's your ads. So the ads, there's lots of different versions of the ads. You want to create as many of these as your brain can like digest. There's a lot of requirements when you're putting them together. You can only have certain words. We'll go over a lot of those different pieces. And we need to make sure that we know the rules for it, but start out broad, test them, narrow them down, and use what works. And so we're going to go over the rules and also the dynamic keyword insertion. So it's a little bit intricate, but we can talk about some of the specifics on how to make it, I don't want to call it gaming the system, but really leveraging the functionality to really make the biggest oomph out of your ads.
All right, so where are we? Are we too far in the weeds here for people?
No.
No?
Are we good? So we got what you're going after. So what you want them to do, how you're enticing them, and the words you're using, like it's your bait, it's your cheese. Put out the different varieties of cheese for people to come and nibble on and get them into your site. Okay. Weird analogy.
So is that what it looks like when I get to a
It is
campaign?
not. That's
No?
kind of a mental model to think
Okay.
about it is.
Right.
Yeah, mental model rather than actual like what it looks like.
I see, yeah, seems very comfortable. It looks like
Looks a little different.
Yeah, it does definitely look different. So the rules of the game, there are a lot, and I recommend that when you're in the process of actually writing down what your ads are, just Google it, and because these rules are consistently changing, just to get a big long list of what they are and to double check them. But first and foremost, figure out exactly how many characters per line can go in there. Next.
So when you're writing an ad, the title can be 35, I think it's 35 characters, or 25 characters. The next two lines can be a certain number of characters, and then the URL can be a certain number of characters. So you have to know what those character limits are so that you can keep your, your text within it. It's like writing a haiku, right?
Yes. Because like each line has to be a certain length.
Versus writing those down. Can you get a copy of the slides? Or
Yes,
yeah.
we will be
Okay.
mailing that along with the recording if you're next.
Thank you.
Yes. So we should have said that in the beginning. So everybody, as you're furiously writing all these things, we did make our slides a little on the dense side, and we have a couple extra slides in it just for density purposes. So when you read it later, it's like, oh yeah, that's what we were talking about. So you can reference it for sure. Sorry about that. So yeah, number of characters per line. It's not full width, and it's really annoying sometimes when you have a word that's long at the end and you have to wrap it. So you have to take a couple things into consideration. I'll just make a note. So how many words are in each line? What words are at the beginning of each line? Because you have to think of how people are reading it quickly. So a whole bunch of nuances can go into how you're rating those things. No explanation point in your titles. That first line, no explanation point. Google doesn't want you to get excited.
You can have one explanation point in the ad, and you probably should, because they tend to go better, but you can't have it.
Just like one of isn't it? Like, yay.
Well, and capitalize the first letter of every word. There's lots of tips.
Different things that are really test and see what works with clients.
I feel like crafting these ads and doing the keywords is kind of like trying to hack people's brains, right? You're trying to figure out what's going to work. How do I entice somebody? How do I make sure that they see my ad and click on it and then actually do what I want them to do? So it's at first I thought, why would I want to do this? And then I kind of got into the game aspect of it, and it got really interesting.
It's totally a game. When you get sucked into this, like, you know, some people read before they go to bed or they play their phone. I sit there on AdWords and I'm like, ooh, look at this. And I tweak all the little different things because we'll talk about A/B testing. But a lot of this is time intensive. And I do want to make sure that everyone understands when you start this up, there's a good chunk of time that goes into leading this up and getting it built at the beginning. Some people just get it thinking, okay, it's done. But that can actually end up hurting you in the long term. So no repetitive words in 3 in a row. You must use your own root URL. No sending people to your Facebook account. No sending people to your subdomain. A big issue that does come up, though, is like, let's say, you have a separate website for your conference or a sub-campaign. That can cause issues. Sometimes you can get away with something flags. But if you send people to a sub-site or a different URL, it will not allow you to do that. You have to send it to the URL you were approved for your grant. Don't ask for money up front. Don't say donate to the blah, blah, blah. Get them onto your page, do the soft sell, and then get them to do something like that. Don't sell things. You can't, that's probably why a lot of times universities and a lot of those other nonprofits that are explicitly taken off that list are on there. Not allowed to sell things. It's a Google grant. Don't advertise on your landing page, so you don't want to have ads. A lot of nonprofits don't sell ads on their homepage or on their website. But if you do, for some reason, make sure that the page you're landing people on from your Google ads don't have ads on it. Last thing is no pop-ups on your landing page. So imagine you just clicked on an ad, and all of a sudden this little pop-up goes, oh, register for our email or log in order to use it. Google will say, no, that kills it.
So no light boxes on
No light
the landing
boxes,
page?
not on the landing page.
So you can turn them off typically for specific pages, and you don't have to send people to your homepage. You send them to the most relevant page for that ad. And so make sure you turn off like the pop-up that says donate to us, so that they're not having to click through that, or Google will reject it for these purposes.
And on the tech side of things, you can separate off. So if the referral source, like they came from a Google grant or a Google ad, you can have, the developer can actually turn off that light box for certain sources that they come from. That's kind of intermediate, but.
Let's say you're advertising like you created a microsite for an event. Can you advertise that microsite?
If it's part of your URL, but most likely if it's microsite, it isn't.
Can you create a redirect?
Yes.
/ conference and then?
Maybe.
Actually, it does get cranky about redirect because they don't want you to land on a site and then push you off to like a for-profit site. They don't want you to be.
What I would do is on your website, create a page for the event and say, great event, blah, 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 more details, and then take them to your microsite.
Yeah.
And then that would be the landing
That's your
page
call
for
to
the ad.
action. Yeah.
John?
Can you give money? Can you say apply for a grant?
Yes.
There we go. So now in with the keywords. This, when we're talking about the onion, gets deep and fast and quick, and it's very intricate, but at a high level.
You guys all understand that keyword is just the name. It can actually be a phrase, and it can be a long phrase. It doesn't have to be one word.
A word or a phrase. So that's when we're talking about for Google, that's what people are typing into the search box. So when we talk about keywords, I've had groups and clients come to me and say, we did a Google grant, it didn't work. I'm like, oh, why didn't it work? They're like, oh, we were going after Ukraine and like no one clicked on us. Or all the crap that we got was crap. I was like, well, that's because you're going after a country. Maybe people were looking for news on Ukraine. Maybe people were looking for a vacation destination. Maybe they were looking for their family history in Ukraine. Who the heck knows what those people were looking for? Your keyword was extremely high level. Also had a client that came to me once that said, I'm the top of elephants. I want to stay at the top of elephants. Cool. Okay, elephants. But if you look at their search traffic, yeah, they were always up there because they were paying Goober money for it. But and they did have a lot of information about elephants on their site. But they were a national park where they were trying to get people to come in and go on safaris and see the elephants and have an elephant rescue. By having like wildlife or elephants, you're gonna get people who are doing homework assignments on elephants and trying to figure out where they live or what they eat. Not the same kind of audience, so they're not likely to click through. So you want that good click-through rate. So you can have observe elephants, but maybe that also is somebody who's looking for a zoo. So I always go ahead and search for what these words are, see what the other search results are to make sure they're actually relevant to what you're doing. And then you can get the long tail observe elephants in Zambia. So now you're targeting it really closely. But when you're choosing your keywords, you also don't want to get too targeted because maybe not enough people are looking for Zambian elephants. Maybe they're just looking for Africa. So it's really good to watch out to make sure that enough of your, you pick the right level of detail to get enough, what do you call it when it's displayed? Enough. So there's click-through rate and there's also display rate. So you want to make sure you're displayed a good number of times and getting a good number of exposures, because sometimes you can click really detailed words. Everybody might click through on it, but everybody just includes 3 people a month.
So if I were the park in Zambia and I was trying to get people to go there, I would go with observe elephants in Zambia, and then I would say, what are all the synonyms for observe? See, view, safari, and then I would say, what are all the synonyms for elephants? Well, we've got zebras, we've got, wildebeest, we've got whatever those are. And then I would go with Zambia. Well, it's Africa, it's Southern Africa, it's, and
all
then,
different ways of
yes.
like that.
And there's actually a great website called mergewords.com, and you can put in observe and the synonyms, elephants and the synonyms in different boxes, and Zambia and the synonyms in different boxes, and it'll give you every iteration of those. And then you can copy them all out and say, oh, I want my keywords.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it. Some people do misspellings. They're like, well, what if they spell Zambia wrong? And you can do all those types of things. And Google will recommend keywords for you, but be careful about the Google recommendations because they're not always perfect. Questions about keywords? Long tails? Long tails means just long keywords. Good.
Okay, so when we're talking about keywords, actually, do you want to click to the next one? Because I think it's got something.
Yeah, this has a ton of detail, but we're going to talk about it at this level.
Yes. So,
sure. So for those of you doing AdWords campaigns, if you put in the word elephants and somebody searches for elephant tusks, then you will likely show up if you put it in just as elephants without quotes or brackets or anything around it. Or if they search for dead elephants or the singing elephants or the elephant man or whatever, you're going to show up. But maybe we need a longer phrase. How about observing elephants? If you put it in quotes, then it will only give you closer matches, right? So it won't.
well, what it'll do, it'll make sure that the word elephants and the word observe was somewhere in that keyword phrase. So it might be observe elephants on the moon is what someone might have typed in and you'll show up. Or it might be observe elephants in their national habitat or whatever it might else be. And it can actually be swapped.
Yeah, elephant observations.
Something like
Exact match would only give you when somebody typed observe elephants. So that's the exact match. And when you have a negative keyword, which is a separate keyword, you put a minus sign in front of it, it's going to take that word out. So if somebody searches for penguins, observe elephants and penguins, and you have a negative for penguins, it'll never show up if somebody puts the word penguins in there. So let's say your organization works on mental health issues, and somebody's searching for you're getting a lot of traffic on mental health medicines. You might want to take out medicines, medication, make those negative keywords. Or if your organization works on environment and you want people coming to you because they're interested in I don't know, like pollution in China issues, you want to take out things like environmental. You don't want people coming to you for jobs. You might want to put a negative keyword for jobs. Or,
Yeah. So a good way to figure out what you should put as a negative, because a lot of times you started out and you're glowing happy, woohoo.
Yes.
Observe elephants. This is awesome. No one's going to have any negatives, or maybe you come up with a couple negatives right off the top of your head. The key is to check back the next day, check back the next week, and see what because you can actually see in there what the phrases were that were selected, and then you can browse through them, and there's going to be red flags in there. You're going to be like, oh my God, observe elephant slaughter. Maybe that's one of the ones, and you're like, whoa, that's not what I want on my website. I don't want these people on my site. They're looking for something else. They're something awful, or maybe they're looking for elephant tusks or something that's not related to you at all. So that's why when you take out those words, because that way you're attracting audiences that are key into what you want them to do or what you want them to learn on your site.
Good question.
How do you pay for negative keywords, or do you have to? So you can, okay.
You're paying for the
It's just
clicks.
removing
Yeah,
traffic.
got it, got it.
Yeah.
So you can have 1 million keywords, but if they don't get clicked, you're not paying for them. So, but yeah, you don't pay for a negative. You don't have to bid on a negative. There we go.
Is the best the broad match or negative? I'm hearing
Yeah.
negative, I guess.
You have all of them. You have combinations. So when you have an ad,
Correct.
oh, can you put the diagram up again? Oh, there you go. So when you have an ad, you have a whole bunch of ads. They all use the same grouping of keywords. And all these keywords are relevant to each ad. So some of these can be negative, some of these can be keywords, some of these are exact phrase, so that you're using different combinations of things in order to like optimize it. So you're never going to have just a negative, or very rarely are you ever going to have just one broad keyword. You're going to have a whole slew of them. Like, how many would you say keywords you have in an ad group?
I'd say 20 to 50. Sometimes less. Sometimes as few as like,
one ad group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why it makes good sense to get out that thesaurus and get a good sense of what people are using.
But you want them to be really tailored to the ads, right? So, any questions about types of keywords? This is really important. I typically don't start with the broad match because you get too much stuff. I typically start with phrase match. And then if it's doing well and getting good traffic and it seems to be converting people that are clicking through, then I might broaden it a little bit. And if you do exact match, you can usually lower the cost quite a bit. So you could get more ads for your same grant.
Yeah,
right?
Spread out that money.
Can you edit your ad once it's up with the phrases and all of that?
Oh yeah, you're gonna be editing that thing all the time. Yep.
Yep, in fact, we'll get into that.
Okay, so once you have your ad up, you gotta step back for a second. That's like the hardest time for me. I just set up my ad, I put in 1 million keywords, I set up all my ad groups, I wordsmith the crap out of everything, and now I have to wait. The question is, how long do you wait? I usually wait a day or a week before. I usually use a couple days before I make any big changes, but I log in after a day to kind of check in, peek under the hood. How's it going? Are these getting any views? Are they getting any click-throughs? And also, it does take a little ramp-up time for Google to start really shaking it out and getting it in the cycle of getting presented in the searches. Is that what you say?
Yeah, I usually wait for a few hundred impressions. It's been shown a few hundred times to see, did anybody click on it? Did they click through?
Yeah.
Because you can't, if it's only been shown 10 times and nobody clicked on it, it doesn't really mean anything, right? I said 95 of the time they don't click on any of the ads and you're one of 5 ads.
So let a little time pass, get a little data stored up in there. Okay, and then it's time to optimize. So what you think is going to work sometimes doesn't always work. It doesn't always serve the purpose that you're looking at. So I was having a lot of fun looking through old ads in prep for this, but this is my favorite one. So if you want to go on to the next one.
Is that a Westphalia?
I don't know what that card is. It's all it's something. But so measuring your ads. So the key, and like me being an analytics person, I'm all about measurement, quantifying, and identifying what is success. So for your ads, know what you mean by success. So you have your ad group and you have your goal that you want them to do. So when you're having that in mind, first impressions, that's the word I was looking for earlier. Number of impressions, how often was it displayed? Is it displayed frequently enough to even give it an opportunity to get clicked on? Sometimes they're so narrow keywords, it's not giving it enough.
So an impression means it was displayed.
Yeah.
Somebody saw it.
So looking at that. Looking at your click-through rates after it's been displayed, how often is it getting clicked through? 1 to 3%, 3% being great, 1 being, hey, it's happening at least. You're going to see really low. Goal completion. These are being able to see in your Google AdWords. This is when you want to go into your Google Analytics. It's a free tool. Just set it up if you're not already using it. But check out what your goals are and what your on-site behavior is. So if people are, great display, everyone's clicking through, yes, AdWords looks like you're on fire, you're doing great. But then you look in your Google Analytics and you're like, once they get onto my website, they're leaving. I have seen many times it's a 95% bounce rate. So they go to the site and they out of there. Okay, what did we just spend all that time doing? What's the point? You want to be able to show your leadership, your organization, or at least even for yourself, all this work I'm putting into this is actually achieving behaviors I want to have happen. So once you're actually looking at this information, it's time to either retire unsuccessful campaigns or evolve them. So take the next step, figure out how we can either spread that more money and get more impact out of it, or to retailer it and focus it in a little bit further. So Google Analytics, so this is what it can look like. What I have here is, if anyone's familiar with segments, so what I did is I'm looking specifically at my AdWords traffic versus all my traffic, and this is average session duration. So you can see over time, I got about two minutes on my site for the average person. My AdWords people are only spending a little over a minute. Okay. I want you guys all to know now is that AdWords traffic is going to send less engaged people. They're not going to spend that much time on your site compared to your average visitors. They're not going to look at that many pages on your site because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to convert. So you're setting them up for success right off the bat. You're putting them right in front of the task you want them to do. You want them to complete it and move on. So this is a great, their average engagement might be a little lower, but look at this. At the end of the day, this is what your successful AdWords campaign will look like. On average, 34% of people coming to my site are converting and doing my goals versus my AdWords people.
So what's your goal, for example?
My goal might be completing a petition, let's say. So I want my people to submit a petition. So 34% of my people are submitting it on my broader website. Of my AdWords, which has an explicit purpose of signing up that petition, 75% of them are doing that. This is a sign of a very successful campaign. You can, this is just looking at AdWords as a total. If you, you can create, eventually into something more advanced, create specific segments of just each specific campaign that you're running. So if you campaign for signing up for a conference, campaign for a petition, campaign for a white paper, you can look at each one and how well they're succeeding. Okay.
So A/B testing. Have you heard of A/B testing before? Yeah. So A/B testing is taking two things that are similar and testing them. And so for an organization that I do some pro bono work with called the FERN, which is the Food Environment Reporting Network, I created two very similar ads. One says, they both say Agricultural News Daily. One says free newsletter every morning. The other says in your email every morning. That's the only difference in the ads. And then they both say from the FERN, subscribe now, and the FERN.org newsletter. And by the way, you can make this whatever you want it to say, as long as this part's your organization. You don't have to put in the real URL. You can just let it say newsletter, and then it links to wherever you want it to go. So you can tweak that. But look, what's the difference? Free newsletter or in your email every morning? Who thinks this one's going to be better? Free newsletter every morning versus in your email every morning? Who votes for this? Who votes for this? Okay, let's see which one did better. So what we saw was Google was showing this one more, 5,700 impressions, and this one, which only had 3,400 impressions. So this one was shown a lot more. But if we look at the click-through rate, 3.79% of people clicked on this one, versus 3.34% clicked on this one. So I guess people like getting newsletters versus getting emails a little bit more, right? So this is where you're just saying, which is working better, and why is it working better, and how do I use that, you know, in my ads and stuff like that. Oftentimes you would come up with something a little more distinctive than that, like you might say, you know, but this is A/B testing. You're testing 2 ads, and then you can say, great, that one's doing better. I'm paying, you know, I'm using more of my money on this one. I'm going to turn this one off. Actually, if you're getting 3.34, you're probably going to keep both of them on because those are very good click-through rates.
But a big thing to always think about, and this is where a lot of people don't do, because they're just in their AdWords dashboard. But take a look at your Google Analytics, because there might very well be, you know, 190 of these people actually sign up for the newsletter versus the people who hit here and it's only 5. So this one might look through AdWords to be much better, but you want to take a look at what's actually happening on your site. That might be worth paying a little more or coming up with a little less click-through rate if they're actually converting. So dynamic keywords.
Dynamic keyword insertion. This is pretty advanced. So those of you who have AdWords campaigns, you can use it immediately. Those of you who don't, this will be something for the future. But essentially,
very effective though.
You want to give people back the words that they give to you. So if somebody is searching for an agriculture business newsletter, and you can show an ad with the title that says agriculture business newsletter, they will be far more likely to click on that than if you show them an ad that says, you know, free ag newsletter. Because they're like, oh, this is exactly what I searched for, right? And so Google said, why don't we give you, the advertiser, the ability to put that word that they searched for right in the ad. So that's called dynamic keyword insertion. So it's inserting whatever they searched for into your ad. And the way you do that is you put the squiggly brackets and you use the word keyword colon. And whatever is in between those squiggly brackets will disappear if what they put in will fit in the width of the ad within those character limits. If it doesn't fit, then they'll use whatever you put here. Got it?
So you're showing them what the default is, and otherwise,
Yes.
see what the other ones are.
So, so for example, if somebody types in environment news and your ad shows up, it will show up like this, environment news daily, and then the rest of the ad. If somebody searches for food and agriculture in the news, that's not going to fit with the word daily after it. So it'll revert back to the default and say food news daily, because you have food news daily as your default. Everybody get it? These tend to have much higher click-through rates.
This is going back to that whole psychology piece. You know how you're always told, like, when you meet somebody, you use their name several times just to, like, you know, hold their attention to different pieces. This is that exact same idea. You asked for it. Hey, I have exactly that. Boom, right here in my ad.
And there's lots of ways you can use this in different parts of the ads. The capitalization of how you spell keyword depends on how it'll show up. There's a lot to this, and we can go through that later if somebody has questions or another time. But dynamic keyword insertion is just something you should know about and start using if you're going to. So dynamic keyword insertion can be dangerous, right? Because somebody might search. So I may have bid on the word jewelry, and whenever jewelry comes up, I'm paying $20 for my ad to appear, and they search for stolen jewelry, and so so idealprice.com is showing an ad for a stolen jewelry sale. They obviously didn't mean to do that. You know, eBay has ads, or had in the past ads for, like, you know, find loneliness. You know, there's ads for, like, buy babies online, because people use dynamic keyword insertion and kind of forget that if somebody puts in something that doesn't make sense, you're going to get a ridiculous ad out of it. So you have to be careful with those. Lots of negatives.
How does it end up, like, on stolen jewelry for ideal price that's here? Because so
right,
they didn't put food news in at all. on like environment news on the last page?
Oh, this is a totally different, they're totally unrelated. But let's,
Okay, so somebody puts stolen jewelry into the search box.
yes.
How does Ideal Price end up with that ad?
Okay, so Ideal Price said, anytime somebody searches, and it includes the word jewelry, anywhere in the phrase that they searched for, we want our ad to show up. And we're gonna pay whatever our bid is for it to show up. So somebody might search for gold jewelry, silver jewelry, platinum jewelry, diamond jewelry, pearl jewelry, earring jewelry. And it would always show up here, gold jewelry sale, diamond jewelry sale, platinum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's perfect. And they did it here as well, gold jewelry dot Ideal Price, right? So they're trying to game the system. They're hacking people's brains. And then somebody searches for stolen jewelry, and it's like Google says, "I got a hit," and so it says stolen jewelry. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do negative dynamic keyword insertion, but you could put negative stolen.
Right. So if
once you realize this just happened.
right, so if they had a negative for stolen, then this would not. That ad wouldn't show up when somebody searched for stolen.
That's why you want to regularly log in. Can't emphasize this enough. A lot of people said it and forget it. Log in, see what's happening. Just do a reality check. What's going on? Is this white? Is this how I want my organization seen? Are we doing good? Yes, good. We can keep on going.
Right. And you know, they want to take out costume jewelry and fake jewelry and all those kinds of
Okay.
sometimes.
And maintenance. So that's that whole thing I was talking about. Once you set it up, there is, as you can tell, a ramp up period. When you first start out, I would say start out with a couple campaigns. Core to your organization. And then focus on one or two, get them under your feet, and then start more and grow it and grow it and grow it. But once you start it, you want to log in daily or every couple of days in order to make sure that you don't end up with stolen jewelry, that you don't end up with something like elephant tusks, purchasing ivory or something like that and going to your site. So just to watch out for what it is and make little adjustments with the negatives and what your keyword types are. Long term, you want to adjust and log in at least monthly and retire your ineffective ads. Make the tweaks as it is. This is when you get into maintenance mode. And then make sure that on a quarterly basis, you set aside some real time as a campaign manager, or even on a monthly basis, honestly. Set aside like a day or two in your schedule. I know it's hard to block off, but to do some extra research, to do your homework, look into how your ads are performing, looking into how, what your organizational priorities are in order to introduce new campaigns. Maybe there's a new big thing coming up soon, and you want to make sure that you're creating an ad for that. So as your organization changes and grows and shifts throughout the year, you want your AdWords campaigns to map to that in order to emphasize it.
And I believe for AdWords, you have to log in at least monthly and change your keyword something at least every 90 days, or they'll take away your Google grant.
Yeah. So not only is it a good practice, Google is kind of
requiring
it now
for the nonprofits.
What was the second thing you're required to do?
So
Change what?
Change something.
You have to change something.
Oh, just anything.
Yeah, change an ad, add a keyword, put in a negative.
Let's make sure you're paying attention.
Right. Or they'll take your grant away.
Can you get the grant back?
Let's take it away.
Oh, probably, but what a pain that would be, huh?
Oh, no, just
It's
making
like,
sure
yeah.
I screw up terribly.
Yeah.
That would be bad. I think actually one place I worked with once, they did get it taken away, but that was years ago, and I know a lot of the processes have changed. But yeah,
I'm sure you could, but just set a calendar event to go log in once every 2 weeks and take a look at things.
And just as an organizational thing, make sure there's more than one person who at least has a baseline knowledge of this, because I've seen a lot of groups where the one person who was really good at this left, and now the other person's like, oh, what are we doing? Just make sure that there's kind of some best practices. I mean, this is just organization management, just so they know, hey, log in once a month. Just change something, at least at a minimum, so while they're taking their time to ramp up, the whole thing doesn't fall apart.
So that's the basics. Covered a lot. I'm sure there was some of that was pretty confusing. But what questions do you have?
Yes, as far as practices go, do you have any recommendations for blogs or newsletters that we should be checking out that have some of the information on best practices for this?
So I bought a book by, gosh, what was his name? Geddes, Geddes was his last name, on AdWords. And it was fantastic when I started off. And it, like if you can read something like that, it kind of just jumpstarts your whole thing. I don't know if it's still the book to buy. But.
No, there's a couple different blogs with things I read, but a lot of them are, I don't have them at my fingertips. But I think when we send out an email after the group, when we send this out, maybe we could include a couple links of sources that we've used historically in order to keep up to date with these things.
Great.
Other questions? Thoughts, comments? Who's going to apply? Good.
So that's awesome. Good job, guys. Or good luck.
All right, and we're happy to help out if you need help setting up your ad campaigns, optimizing on, figuring out what ads work. We're here to.
Yeah, a lot of it is if you're able to get a good, solid start, it is amazingly easier to maintain it going forward. If you end up with a rocky start with campaigns flying everywhere, some spending huge amounts of money in the beginning and then timing out and then spending nothing in the last part of the month, it just gets a lot more challenging to manage. So just spend your time, keep your keywords, socialize it with your organization to make sure that you're going after the right things and speaking in the right tone that you want to be in there. Funny enough, funniest thing is I did, my best performing ad didn't use proper English. It was missing the word in or a or the or something like that. And as an organization, we wanted to be seen as a very academic group. So they're like X-nay on the no A using. So you want to make sure that when you're creating your ads, they reflect your organization and the caliber of what it is and not just going after the clicks per se. So that was just a plus one.
Does it estimate how many impressions you might get?
Yes, there are so many tools, and we can actually include a couple of them. They're built into AdWords, all of them, where you can actually type in all sorts of keywords and phrases, and it will suggest ones for you. It'll estimate this is how many impressions it'll get based on what your content is. We anticipate this is how you'll rank even. It's not 100% accurate per se, but it does help.
And once you get it set up, Google will start recommending stuff because they want people to spend more money, so they'll start recommending things left and right. You should add these keywords. You should do this. You should do that.
Yeah. So that's one of it. And yeah, questions.
So in the future, are you guys going to continue to do kind of talks like this? What's the plan for 4-on-1?
Well, if there's demand, if you want us to kind of go deeper or give other recommendations or talk about some tips for ads, or we could take a certain organization and kind of go through their campaign and pull it apart and recommend things. So if there's interest, let us know. And we'll do some more. There's our email addresses. But yeah, let us know. And if there's interest, we can certainly do a series of it. What would be great is if people got their Google, for nonprofits thing set up and try to apply for your Google ad grant and see if it works. And if you get rejected, it's okay because you probably, did some things that you're not supposed to do. And then it'd be fun to talk about it then or look at a bunch of campaigns and kind of go through it with a group or something like that.
How do you go about, you said you get enough people who are interested into having more forums. Now, how do we go about?
Send us an email.
Just so everybody sends you an email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there are 20 people in the room?
Well, we're going to send out an email on it. Maybe we'll just include a little survey or something basic. But just out of curiosity, how many people would be interested in something like a startup workshop where we could actually go through, set up a campaign together? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That might be fun.
Yeah, I could imagine that, because then you actually get in the tool and start looking
Yeah.
at things. Because it's like I built my life around like looking and like playing with analytics and data and ads and stuff. So it's a lot of fun for me, and I love sharing. So
Update.
yeah, I can imagine that being fun. Great. Any other questions about any of the different tidbits I know we covered?
All right, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So this one, you are going to send the email, right?
Yeah.
So because some things I am not a tech person.
Yeah.
And I can explain in the board.
Yeah.
So if you send me, I can forward to everyone in the directors.
Yeah.
So that they can have any questions.
Yeah.
They can contact you.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean,
We can do like that, right?
yeah,
Basically, the presentation, whatever, it will come.
yeah, we'll send a video of it as well, so people
Yeah,
can
sure.
watch the video.